संसारतावा नललीढलोका त्रणयकारुण्यघना घनात्वं प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणानवश्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् महाप्रभु कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वदित्रमाद्यान् मनशूरसेना रोमाञ्चकाम्पश्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमर्जनादौ युक्तस्य भक्तांश्च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् चतुर्वेदा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादः स्वादन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घान् कृत्वा व्यातृप्तिं भजतः सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना प्रतीक्षणा स्वादनलोलुपास्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् निकुञ्जयूनोरतिकेलिसेन्द्यै यायलिभिर्युक्तेरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदाक्षरतिवल्लभास्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् साक्षादरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा भायतेव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोया प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादान् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादान् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Nil Madho, Radha Nil Madho, Sri Radhe. Jai Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Shyam Sundar, Sri Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jai Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. सीताराम 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 जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय सच्चिनंदन जय सच्चिनंदन जय सच्चिनंदन गौर हरि जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल श्री राधा निर्माता भगवान की जय
जय Shnupada Pramhamsa Pradika Acharya Shtota Shata Shishmatis Divine Grace Aparachana Rinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT BI Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Shnupada Pramhamsa Pradika Acharya Shtota Shata Shishmatis Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Premise Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrajabhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Chaitra Jagannath-puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samavrita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Prahlad Lad Daine Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha Shiratahankana Kala Hai Hito Nashinga Parato Nashima Yato Yato Yamitato Nashima Bahir Nashima Hirdaye Nashima Narashima Madhima Sharanam Pratmate तव कर कमलवरेणकाम् अद्भुत श्री माया दालिता हिरण्यकाशिपूतानुवृन्दा केशवरीतः नरहरिरूपः जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमलवरेणकाम् अद्भुत श्री माया दालिता हिरण्यकाशिपूतानुवृन्दा केशवरीतः नरहरिरूपः जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमलवरेणकाम् अद्भुत श्री माया दालिता हिरण्यकाशिपूतानुवृन्दा केशवरीतः नरहरिरूपः जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे I'm sorry. अद्भुत श्रृंगाया दालिता हिरण्यकाशिपूतानुवृन्दा केशवरीतः नरहरिरूपः जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय हो प्रहलाद महाराज जय हो प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय हो प्रहलाद महाराज जय हो शिला प्रभुपाद जय हो शिला प्रभुपाद जय हो शिला प्रभुपाद जय हो शिला प्रभुपाद नरसिंहदेव भगवान की भक्त प्रहलाद महाराज की जय श्री गुरु परंपरा की जय निता गौ प्रेम नंदी हरि बोल Girls and assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, Girls to Garanga Gorsh Prabhupada ki jai. जय।
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilasi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilasi Maya Sharanalo Aravancha Purna Ho Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavana Vasi Ora Eya Vilas Vilas Tunje Diola Sayane Heri Bosada Rudala Ruparasi Bosada Rudala Ruparasi Eni Vedhara Bharo Sakiranudata Toro Sevadhikara Priye Koro Nitradasi Vina Krishna Dase Koe Jena Moraho Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi Kani Kani Chapani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यानि च तानि तानि प्राणाशान्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यानि च तानि तानि प्राणाशान्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Vrindaye Tulsi Devyaya Priyaye Kesavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Pratidevi Satyavate Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devyaya Priyaye Kesavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Pratidevi Satyavate Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devyaya Priyaye Kesavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Pratidevi Satyavate Namo Namaha. Vrindadevi Tulsi Maharani ki Jai.
I beg you, make me follow the power temple of virtue. Please give me the British devotional service and make me own maid servant. This very fallen lowly son of Krishna praise. May I always feel the love to Shri Radha and Govinda. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani ki Jai. There are 10 sentences in meditation held in English divided and they are as follows. 1. To bless in the devotees of the dedicated lives for propagating holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to intend the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To bless in the the students of the devotion. 5. To consider the glorious chanting Hare Krishna to the imagination. 6. To pay some interpretation to holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna was auspicially choose activities, often the Veda, the fruity activities, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct the faces first about glorious holy name. 10. To not complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain mature attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense of inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must regard against these sentences in order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna, Prema. Now let us offer our most humble wishes on all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, that this light truth will fulfill to everyone, and the full compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. 需求的是啥子根基在？ये तो अर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रियकायवचन्त्रिकावितरणं विद्यावतु जीवनम् आनन्दं परिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामि आसादनं सर्वात्मस्नभनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम् नाम गाय बहुधा निज सर्वशक्तिः तत्रापितानियमितस्मरणेन कालः एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन्ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशं विहातनिनानुरागः तृणादपि सुनीत्येन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीय सदा हरिः न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वाचगदीशकामये मम जन्मनि च मनीश्वरे भवतापाक्तिर्हैतुकी भवै अयि नन्दतनुज किङ्करं प्रतिभं मां विषमे भवां पुधा कृपया तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूरि सदेशं विचिन्तय नयनं कृताश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदहृदयाखिला पुलकानिष्टं वपुर्कथा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति युगायुधं निमीशेन चक्षुषा प्रविशायितं शून्यायितं जगत् सर्वं गोविन्दविरहेण मे आशिषवापादरतां पिन्नस्तु माम् अथार्चनामार्भतां करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पतो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव नापरः हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री चैतन्य शिक्षासकं की जय. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes fire of conditional life for repeated births and deaths. This Sankirtana movement is the prime meditation of humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and enables to fully taste nectar for which always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone finds all benediction human beings. Thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. They are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, our kindness enables us to easily approach you by your holy name, but I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. We should chant holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind. Think for yourself, Lord, and the square in the street. We should be more hard than the tree. Be without all sense of false prestige, and should be ready of all respect for others. In such a state of mind, one can chant holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to make wealth, not to desire evil women, not to want any number of followers. Only want your causes, devotional service, birth after birth. O Samananda Krishna, I am eternal servitor. Yes, somehow I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me along the islands of lotus feet. Oh my God, while my eyes with tears of love, feeling constant when I chant your holy name. While my voice choke up, my hurts my body, and anticipation of your name. Oh, Govind, feeling of separation has a moment like a great millennium. Here's the feeling from eyes like pouring through rain, and I feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and shall remain so if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shiksha Gampi Jai. Shri Mangala Aarti Jai. Om Jnana Mirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshomritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadamahyam Datati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Bhagamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sakana Raknatam Vitantam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Shakham Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pachatate Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daya Kripapaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayine Pravin Namaha Madhuryo Chula Premaja Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namaste Namaste Kauravani Shri Mudeye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Pasiddhanta Dvandahadine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Mudeye Viparambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate Gaurabhir Bhava Bhumesvam Nidishta Sadhana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhama Shri Jagannathayate Namaha Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Krishna Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Svarupakam Bhaktavatara Bhaktakham Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabanto Chakapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanda Namaste Jayadam Srato Bhango Mamamanda Mahevadi Masarva Sapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Dived Vindaranya Kalpatumada Shrimad Ranagara Singhasanasto Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishthavi Sevimano Smarami Shriman Rasara Sarambi Vamsi Vatatasita Karsham Benu Suner Gopir Gopinatha Shri Tapta Kantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Mangala Prayers Ki Jai Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiraya Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukapa Viksha Lakshariteshu Sradi Rabi Palayantam Lakshmi Sahasashatasam Paramasevimanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Padami Venum Kamanantam Ravinda Dalayataksam Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Gandharvagoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandakala Savanamaya Vamshi Ranam Gadam Panaya Heri Kalavilasam Shaman Tripankalaridam Yatapakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Mandi Pashanti Pandi Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chimmaya Saduja Vikrahasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaita Machota Manati Mananta Rupam Aryam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabam Madurlabam Atma Bhakta Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Andhasu Koti Shadabasara Sampragamya Vayuradhapi Manaso Munipangvanam Sopyati Yapapata Simya Vijinda Tatve Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sarachaitum Jagadanta Kotim Yachakti Rasti Jagadanta Jayayanta Antantarasa Paramanu Jayantarasam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yadbhava Bhavitatiyo Manusasateva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasana Yana Pusha Sukayam Eva Nikamapatitai Suvanti Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chimmersa Pradibhavitavis Taphe Eva Njarupa Yakalati Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Buddho Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premantana Churta Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Hidayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundam Achintya Guna Sarupam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Shuklani Amena Tishtan Nanavatarama Karo Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramapumamyo Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna, who not Govinda, is the supreme Godhead, has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and is the prime cause of all causes.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. The first originator who is studying the cause, healing or design, enables spiritual gems surrounded by millions of tapestries, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adapting pain and his fruit, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feather, with figure of beauty tinged with hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness carrying millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form the Shamsundar in eternally manifest.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinity universes, both spiritual and mundane.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning, the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only of the toe of whose lotus feet is the birth of the yogis who aspire for the transcendental and Vedic themselves to pranayama, by drilling the respiration or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years.
He is an undifferentiated possessor, therefore possessor. Therefore, in his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is the present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe, at one and at the same time. Such is the primeval Lord, whom I adore.
Adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveniences, and ornaments.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goluka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the aesthetic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Sakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shamasundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifests himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Narsimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions.
Sri Brahma Samhita ki
Jai.
Bhagavad Gita 7.1 Purport Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punyasravana Kirtanaha Hridayanta hi stohi abhadrani vidnoti suhrat satam Nasta prayesva abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki Tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhas jayaschaye Cheta eter anavidam sitam satve prasidati Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha भगवत तत्व विज्ञानम मुक्त संगस्य जायते विद्यते हृदय ग्रंथिश्चित्यन्ते सर्व संशयाः क्षीयन्ते च कर्माणि दृष्टा एवात्मनीश्वरे.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga serves the heart note of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of asamsayam samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We'll continue reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 20. Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 20. Nasike nirabdhi dyetam dodhyati nabaswati tatra vayur gandhavaho grano nasi jigrikrasataha. Nasike in the nostrils, nirabdhi dietam being developed, doduyati rapidly blowing, nabaswati air respiration, tatra thereupon, vayuhu air, gandhavaha smelling odor, granaha sense of smell, nasi in the nose, jigrikshataha desiring to smell odors. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Therefore, when the Supreme Purusha desired to smell odors, the nostrils and respiration were generated. The nasal instrument and orders came into existence, and the controlling deity of air carrying smell also became manifested. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The nasal instrument, order, and the controlling deity of air, smelling, etc., all became manifested simultaneously when the Lord desired to smell. The Vedic mantras confirm this statement in the Upanishad statement that everything is first desired by the Supreme before the subordinate living entity can act upon it. The living entity can see only when the Lord sees, the living entity can smell when the Lord smells, and so on. The idea is that the living entity cannot do anything independently. He can simply think of doing something independently, but he cannot act independently. This independence is thinking is there by the grace of the Lord, but the thinking can be given shape by the grace of the Lord. And therefore, the common saying is that man proposes and God disposes. The whole explanation is on the subject of the absolute dependence of the living entities and absolute independence of the Supreme Lord. Less intelligent persons claiming to be on an equal level with God must prove themselves to be absolute and independent, and then they must substantiate their claim to being one with God.
Sorry, 31. I'm lost on the line.
Yeah, you can scroll up. 21. Yeah, go to the next.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yat yadmani yadatmani niralokam atmanam chadirtriksataha nirbhine hi akisni tasya jyotish chaksurguna grana yada while atmani unto himself niralokam without any light, atman own transcendental body, cha also other bodily forms, drikstata desired to look upon, nirbhine due to being spouted, high he for akisni for the eyes, Tasya of him, Jyoti the sun, Chaksu the eyes, Gunagraha the power of seeing. The translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus, when everything existed in the darkness, the Lord desired to see himself in all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's sun, the power of vision, and the object of sight all became manifested. Purport. The universe is by nature dense darkness, and therefore the total creation is called tamas or darkness. The night is the real feature of the universe, for then no one can see anything, including oneself. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, first desired to see himself in all the creation as well, and thus the sun became manifested. The power of vision for all living entities became possible, and the objects of vision were also manifested. This means that the whole phenomenal world became visible after the creation of the sun.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 22. Bodhyamanasya rishibir atmanastajigritshataha karnau cha nirabdhidyetam dishastrotram gunagraha. Bodhyamanasya, desiring to understand, Rishibhihi, by the authorities, Atmana, of the Supreme Being, that Jigrikshatat, when he desired to take up, Karnau, the ears, Cha, also Nirabdhidyetam, became manifested, Disha, the direction of the god of air, Strotram, the power of hearing, Gunagraha, and the objects of hearing. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. By development of the desire of the great sages to know, the ears, the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. The great sages desired to hear about the self. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, by advancement of knowledge, one should try to know that the Supreme Lord, the summum bonum of everything. Knowledge does not mean knowledge only of the laws of nature or physical knowledge, which are working by the direction of the Lord. The scientists are eager to hear about the physical laws working in material nature. They are eager to hear through the medium of radio and television about things taking place far away from them on other planets, but they should know that the power of hearing and the instruments for hearing were given to them by the Lord for hearing about the self or about the Lord. Unfortunately, the power of hearing is misused in hearing the vibrations of mundane affairs. The great sages were interested in hearing about the Lord through Vedic knowledge and nothing more. That is the beginning of oral reception of knowledge.
Text 23, Canto 2, Chapter 10. Vastuno mrudukat India lagu gurvu oshna sidatam jigrukshatas twan nirbinna tasyam roma mahiruha tatra chantar bahirvatas tvacha labda gunovrataha. Vastunaha, of all matter, mrudu, softness, katinya, hardness, lagu, lightness, guru, heaviness, oshna, warmness, sitatam, coldness, jigra, kshataha, desiring to perceive, tvak, the touch sensation, nirbruted, tasyam, in the skin, roma, hairs on the body, mahi, ruhaha, as well as the trees, the controlling deities, tatra, there, cha, also, antaha, within, bahi, outside, vata, tvacha, the sense of touch or the skin, labda, having been perceived, guna, objects of sense perception, vrutaha, generated. When there was a desire to perceive the physical characteristics of matter, such as softness, hardness, warmth, cold, lightness, and heaviness, the background of sensation, the skin pores, the hairs on the body, and their controlling deities, the trees were generated. Within and outside the skin is a covering of air through which sense perception became prominent. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The physical characteristics of matter, such as softness, are subjects of sense perception, and thus physical knowledge is the subjective matter of the touch sensation. One can measure the temperature of a matter by touching with the hand, and one can measure the weight of an object by lifting it with the hand, and thus estimate its heaviness or lightness. The skin pores, and the hairs on the body are all interdependent with the touch sensation. The air blowing within and outside the skin is perception. This sense perception is also a source of knowledge, and therefore it is suggested here that physical or physiological knowledge is subordinate to the knowledge of the self, as above mentioned. Knowledge of self can expand the knowledge of phenomena, but physical knowledge cannot lead to knowledge of the self. There is, however, an intimate relation between the hairs on the body and the vegetation on the body of the earth. The vegetables are nourishment for the skin, both as food and medicine, as stated in the third canto. Tvacham asya vinirbinnam vivishvur disnyam oshadi.
Hastau Hastauru Hastauruha Tustasya Nana Karmachik Chirashaya Taryoshto Balavanindra Nadanambu Ubaya Shrayam
Hastav, the hands, Ruruhato, manifested, Tasya, his, Nana, various, Karma, work, Chikirshaya, being so desirous, Tayo, of them too, however, Balavan, to give strength, Indraha, the demigod in heaven, Adanam, activities of the hand, Ubaya Ashrayam, dependent on both the demigod and the hand.
Translation. Thereafter, when the Supreme Person desired to perform varieties of work, the two hands and their controlling strength and Indra, the demigod in heaven, became manifested, as also the acts dependent on both the hands and the demigods. Purport. If in every item we can note with profit that the sense organs of the living entity are never independent at any stage. The great Lord is known as the Lord of the senses, Hirishikesha. Thus, the sense organs of the living entities are manifested by the will of the Lord, and each organ is controlled by a certain type of demigod. No one therefore can claim any proprietorship of these senses, of the senses. The living entity is controlled by the senses. The senses are controlled by the demigods, and the demigods are the servants of the Supreme Lord. That is the arrangement in the system of creation. The whole thing is controlled ultimately by the Supreme Lord, and there is no independence either of the material nature or the living entity. The illusioned living entity who claims to be the Lord of his senses is under the clutches of the external energy of the Lord. He is as long as a living entity continues to be puffed up by his tiny existence, he is to be understood to be under the stringent control of the external energy of the Lord, and there is no question of liberation from the clutches of illusion, Maya. However much one may declare himself as a liberated soul.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 25. Gatim jigisatha pado ruruha te bhikamikam padbyam yajna swayam havyam karma bihi kriyate nribihi. Gatim, movement, jigitsata, so desiring, padau, the legs, ruruhate, being manifested, abhikamikam, purposeful, padabhyam, from the legs, yajna, the Lord Vishnu, swayam, personally himself, havyam, the duties, karma bihi, by one's occupational duty, kriyate, caused to be done, tribihi, by different human beings. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested, and from the legs the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human beings are busily engaged in dutiful occupational sacrifice. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Every human being is engaged in his particular occupational duty, and such activities are visible as men go hither and thither. This is very prominently visible in big cities of the world. People are going all over the cities with great concern from one place to another. This movement is not limited only to the cities, but is also visible outside the cities from one place to another, or from one city to another by different means of vehicles. Men are moving by cars and rails on the roads, by subways within the earth, and by planes in the sky for the purpose of business success. But in all these movements, the real purpose is to earn wealth for comfortable life. For this comfortable life, the scientist is engaged, the artist is engaged, the engineer is engaged, the technician is engaged, all in different branches of human activity. But they do not know how to make the activities purposeful to fulfill the mission of human life. Because they do not know this secret, all their activities are targeted towards the goal of sense gratification without control, and therefore by all this business they are unknowingly entering into the deep regions of darkness. Because they have been captivated by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, they have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and thus they have taken it for granted that this life as presented manifested under the conditions of material nature is all in all for enjoying the highest amount of sense gratification. But such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind. And thus, in spite of all advancement in knowledge, by use of the resource of nature, no one is happy in this material civilization. The secret is that every step they should be they should try to execute sacrifices toward the path of world peace. The Bhagavad Gita 18.45 to 46 also advises the same secret in the following words. Sve sve karmani abhiratha samsiddhim labhate nara swakarma niratha siddhim yatha vindanti chachrunu yatha pravartir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmanatam abhyarcha siddhim vindanti manavaha. The Lord said to Arjuna, just hear from me how can one attain the highest perfection in life simply by discharging his specified occupational duty. Man can attain the highest perfection of life by worshipping the Supreme Lord and by performing sacrifice for the sake of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is all pervading, and by whose control every living being acquires his desired facilities according to his personal propensity. There is no harm in having different propensities in life because every human being is proportionately independent to chalk out the plan of his life by different occupations. But one should make it a point in his life to know perfectly well that he is not independent absolutely. One is certainly under the control of the Supreme Lord and under different agencies. Knowing this, one should make it a point that by his work and the result of his labor he serves the Supreme Lord as prescribed by the authorities expert in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. For performing such occupational duties of life, the leg is the most important instrument of the body because without the help of the legs, one cannot move from one place to another. And therefore, the Lord has special control over the legs of all human beings, which are meant for performing yajnas.
Text 26, Canto 2, Chapter 10. Nirabidyata shishno vai prajanandamruta urdinaha upasthasit kamanam priyam tad ubhya yashrayam. Nirabidyata came out. Shishnaha, the genitals. Why? Certainly. Praja ananda, sex pleasure. Amruta ardinaha, aspiring to taste the nectar. Upastaha, the male or female organ. Asit, came into existence. Kamanam, of the lustful. Priyam, very dear. Tat, that. Ubhaya ashrayam, shelter for both. Translation. Thereupon for sexual pleasure, begetting offspring and tasting heavenly nectar, the Lord developed the genitals, and thus there is a genital organ and its controlling deity, the Prajapati. The object of sexual pleasure and the controlling deity are under the control of the genitals of the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The heavenly pleasure for the conditioned soul is sexual pleasure, and this pleasure is tasted by the genitals. The woman is the object of sexual pleasure, and both the sense perception of sexual pleasure and the woman are controlled by the Prajapati, who is under the control of the Lord's genitals. The impersonalist must know from this verse that the Lord is not impersonal, for he has his genitals, on which all the pleasurable objects of sex depend. No one would have taken the trouble to maintain children if there were no taste of heavenly nectar by means of sexual intercourse. This material world is created to give the conditioned souls a chance for rejuvenation, for going back home, back to Godhead, and therefore generation of the living being is necessary for upkeep of the purpose of creation. Sexual pleasure is an impetus for such an action, and as such one can even serve the Lord in the act of such sexual pleasure. The service is counted when the children born of such sexual pleasure are properly trained in God consciousness. The whole idea of material creation is to revive the dormant God consciousness of the living entity. In forms of life other than the human form, sexual pleasure is prominent without any motive of service for the mission of the Lord, But in the human form of life, the conditioned soul can render service to the Lord by creating progeny suitable for the attainment of salvation. One can beget hundreds of children and enjoy the celestial pleasure of sexual intercourse, provided he is able to train the children in God consciousness. Otherwise, begetting children is on the level of the swine. Rather, the swine is more expert than the human being because the swine can beget a dozen piglets at a time, whereas a human being can give birth to only one at a time. So one should always remember the genitals, sexual pleasure, the woman and the offspring are all related in the service of the Lord. And one who forgets this relationship in the service of the Supreme Lord becomes subjected to the threefold miseries of material existence by the laws of nature. Perception of sexual pleasure is there even in the body of the dog, but there is no sense of God consciousness. The human form of life is distinct from that of the dog by the perception of God consciousness. 27.
Utishe krikoshur datumalam
निराभिद्यत वैगुदं तदा पायुस्तदो मित्रा उत्सर्गा उभयाश्रयाः Uchishroksho, desiring to evacuate. Dhatu malam, refuse of eatables. Nirabhidyata, became open. Why? Certainly. Gudam, the evacuating hole. Tada, thereafter. Payu, the evacuating sense organ. Tada, thereafter. Mitra, the controlling demigod. Utsargaha, the substance evacuated. Ubaya, both. Ashraya, shelter. Here.
Translation. Thereafter, when he desired to evacuate the refuse of eatables, the evacuating hole, anus, and the sensory organ thereof developed along with the controlling deity Mitra. The sensory organ and the evacuating substance are both under the shelter of the controlling deity. Purport. Even in the matter of evacuating stool, the refuse is controlled. So how can the living entity claim to be independent?
Text 28. Ashishropsho purapurya nabidvaram apanataha tatrapana sado mrityu prutaktvam ubayashrayam. Ashishropso, desiring to go everywhere. Puraha, in different bodies. Puryaha, from one body. Nabidvaram, the navel or abdominal hole. Apanataha, was manifested. Tatra, thereupon. Apanaha, stopping of the vital force. Tada, thereafter. Mrityu, death. Prutaktvam, separately. Ubaya, both. Ashrayam, shelter. Translation. Thereafter, when he desired to move from one body to another, the navel and the air of departure and death were combinedly created. The navel is a shelter for both, namely death and the separating force. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The pranavayu continues the life, and the apanavayu stops the living force. Both the vibrations are generated from the abdominal hole. The navel, both the vibrations are generated from the abdominal hole, the navel. This navel is a joint from one body to the other. Lord Brahma was born of the abdominal hole of Garbhodakasaya Vishnu as a separate body. The same principle is followed even in the birth of any ordinary body. The body of the child develops from the body of the mother, and when the child is separated from the body of the mother, it is separated by cutting the navel joint. And that is the way the Supreme Lord manifested Himself as separated many. The living entities are therefore separated parts, and thus they have no independence. Text 29. Abhi.
Adi, so I can't.
आदिचोरन्न पापानम् आसान् कुक्षि अन्तनादयाः नद्या समुद्राश्च तयोस्तुष्टि पुष्टिस्तदाश्रये. Adhisto, desiring to have Annapananam, a food and drink, Asan, there became, Kukshi, the abdomen, Andhra, the intestines, Nadaya, and the arteries, Nadya, the rivers, Samudra, seas, Cha also, Tayo of them, Tushti, sustenance, Pushti, metabolism, Tad of them, Ashraya, the source.
Translation: when there was a desire to have food and drink, the abdomen and the intestines also the arteries became manifested. The rivers and seas are the source of their sustenance and metabolism. Purport: the controlling deities of the intestines are the rivers, and those of the arteries the seas. Fulfillment of the body with food and drink is the cause of sustenance, and the metabolism of the food and drink replaces the waste of the bodily energies. Therefore, the body's health is dependent on healthy actions in the intestines and the arteries. The rivers and the seas, being the controlling deities of the tube, keep the intestines and the arteries in healthy order.
Text 30, Canto 2, Chapter 10. निदिध्यासोरात्ममायं हृदयां निरविद्यता ततो मनश्चन्द्र इति संकल्पा काम एव च. Nididhyaso, being desires to know, Atmamayam, own energy, Hridayam, the location of the mind, Niravidyata, was manifested, Tada, thereafter, Mana, the mind, Chandraha, the controlling deity of the mind, the moon, Iti, thus, Sankalpaha, the determination, Kamaha, desire, Eva, as much as, Cha, also. Translation: when there was a desire to think about the activities of his own energy, then the heart, the seat of the mind, the moon, determination, and all desire became manifested. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The heart of every living entity is the seat of the Super Soul, Paramatma, a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without His presence, the living entity cannot get into the working energy according to his past deeds. The living entities who are conditioned in the material world are manifested in the creation in terms of respective inclinations inherent in them, and the requisite material body is offered to each and every one of them by the material energy under the direction of the Super Soul. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 9.10. When therefore the Super Soul is situated in the heart of the conditioned soul, the requisite mind is manifested in the conditioned soul, and he becomes conscious of his occupation, as one is conscious of his duty after waking up from slumber. Therefore, the material mind of the living entity develops when the Super Soul sits on his heart, after which the mind, the controlling deity moon, and then the activities of the mind, namely thinking, feeling, willing, all take place. The activities of the mind cannot begin without the manifestation of the heart, and the heart becomes manifested when the Lord wants to see the activities of the material creation. Text 31. Canto 2, Chapter 10. Tvak charma mamsa rudira medo majjasti datavaha bhumi apotejo maya sapta prano yomambu vayubhihi. Tvak, the thin layer on the skin, charma, skin, mamsa, flesh, rudira, blood, medaha, fat, majja, marrow, asti, bone, datavaha, elements, bhumi, earth, up, water, tejaha, fire, mayaha, predominating, sapta, seven, pranaha, breathing air, vyoma, sky, ambu, water, vayubhihi, by the air. Translation: the seven elements of the body, namely the thin layer on the skin. Wait, translation. 31.
31. Tvakarma mamsa. Oh, translation. The seven elements of the body, namely the thin layer on the skin itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and bone, are all made of earth, water, and fire, whereas the life breath is produced by the sky, water, and air. Purport: the construction of the whole material world is permanently made by three elements, namely earth, water, and fire. But the living force is produced by sky, air, and water. So water is the common element in both the gross and subtle forms of all material creation. And it should be noted herewith that due to necessity, water being most prominent in the body in the material being most prominent in the material creation is the principal element of all the five. This material body is thus an embodiment of the five elements, and the gross manifestation is perceived because of three, namely earth, water, fire, and fire. Sensations of touch are perceived due to the thin layer on the skin, and bone is as good as hard stone. The breathing air of life is produced of sky, air, and water, and therefore open air, regular bath, and ample spaces which to live for are favorable for healthy vitality. Fresh produce from the earth, like grains and vegetables, as well as fresh water and heat is good for the upkeep of the gross body.
32, right? Text 32, Chapter 2, Chapter 10.
I know, I put it this far away from my mouth.
I will put it here. Gunatmakanindri yani bhutadi prabhava guna mana sarva vikaratma buddhir vijnana rupini. Guna atmakani, attached to the qualities. Indriyani, the senses. Bhutadi, material ego. Prabhavaha, influenced by. Gunaha, the modes of material nature. Manaha, the mind. Sarva, all. Vikara, affection, happiness and distress. Atma, form. Buddhi, intelligence. Vijnana, deliberation. Rupini, featuring. Translation: the sense organs are attached to the modes of material nature, and the modes of material nature are products of the false ego. The mind is subjected to all kinds of material experiences, happiness and distress, and the intelligence is a feature of the mind's deliberation. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Illusion by the material nature, the living entity identifies with false ego. More clearly, when the living entity is entrapped by the material body, he at once identifies with the bodily relationships, forgetting his own identity as spirit soul. This false ego associates with different modes of material nature, and thus senses become attached to the modes of material nature. Mind is the instrument for feeling different material experiences, but intelligence is deliberative and can change everything for better. The intelligent person therefore can attain salvation from the illusion of material existence by proper use of intelligence. An intelligent person can detect the awkward position of material existence and thus begin to inquire as to what he is, why he is subjected to different kinds of miseries, and how to get rid of all miseries, and thus by good association, an advanced intelligent person can turn towards the better life of self realization. It is advised, therefore, that an intelligent person associate with the great sages and saints who are on the path of salvation. By such association, one can receive instructions which are able to slacken the conditioned soul's attachment for matter, and thus the intelligent man gradually gets rid of the illusion of matter and false ego and is promoted to the real life of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Text 33. Abhi, come, I'll help you. Please, first. Go slow, this can be seen. Read.
33. एतद् भागवतो रूपं स्थूलं देव्या हृतं मया माहि आदिभिष्कवारानर् अस्ताभिर्बहिरवृतम्.
Etad, all these, Bhagavata of the personality of Godhead, Rupam, form, Sulam, gross, Te, unto you, Vahrutam, explained, Maya, by me, Mahi, the planets, Adibhi, and so on, Cha, unlimitedly, Avaranai, by coverings, Astabhi, by 8, Bahi, external, Avratam, covered.
Translation. Thus, by all this, the external feature of the personality of Godhead is covered by gross forms such as those of planets, which are explained to you by me. Purport. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita 4.7, the separated material energy of the personality of Godhead is covered by 8 kinds of material coverings: earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All these are emanations from the personality of Godhead as his external energy. These coverings are just like the coverings of clouds for the sun. The cloud is a creation of the sun, yet it actually covers the eyes so that no one can see the sun. The sun cannot be covered by the clouds. The cloud can at most extend a few hundred miles in the sky, but the sun is far greater than millions of miles. So 100-mile covering is not competent to cover millions of miles. Therefore, one of the various energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot, of course, cover the Lord. But these coverings are created by Him to cover the eyes of the conditioned souls who want to lord it over the material nature. Actually, the conditioned souls are covered by the illusory creative cloud of matter, and the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to their eyes. Because they have no eyes or transcendental vision, and because they cannot see the personality of Godhead, they therefore deny the existence of the Lord and the transcendental form of the Lord. The covering of the gigantic material feature is accepted by such men with poor fund of knowledge. And how this is explained in the following verse.
Text 34. Atah param sukshmatamam avyaktam nirvisheshanam anadi madhya nidanam nityam van manasa param. Atah, therefore, param, transcendental, sukshmatamam, finer than the finest, avyaktam, unmanifested, nirvisheshanam, without material feature, anadi, without beginning, madhya, without an intermediate stage, nidanam, without end, nityam, eternal, vak, words, manasaha, mind, param, transcendental. Translation. Therefore, beyond this gross manifestation is a transcendental manifestation, finer than the finest form. It has no beginning, no intermediate stage, and no end. Therefore, it is beyond the limits of the expression or mental speculation, and is distinct from the material conception. The gross purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The gross external body of the Supreme is manifested at certain intervals, and thus the external feature or form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not the eternal form of the Lord, which has no beginning, no intermediate stage, and no end. Anything which has a beginning, interim, and the end is called material. The material world is begun from the Lord, and thus the form of the Lord before the beginning of the material world is certainly transcendental to the finest or the finer material conception. The ether in the material world is considered to be the finest. Finer than the ether is mind, intelligence, and false ego. But all 8 of the outward coverings are explained as outer coverings of the Absolute Truth. The Absolute Truth is therefore beyond the expression and speculation of the material conception. He is certainly transcendental to all material conceptions. This is called Nirvisheshanam. One should not, however, misunderstand Nirvisheshanam as being without any transcendental qualification. Visheshana means qualities. Therefore, Nir added to it means that it has no material qualities or variegatedness. This nullifying expression is described in 4 transcendental qualifications, namely unmanifested, transcendental, eternal, and beyond the conception of mind or word. Beyond the limits of words means negation of the material conception. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to know the transcendental form of the Lord. Text 35. Amuni Bhagavadrupe Mayate hi Anuvartini Ube Piyana Grahnati Nanti Maya Shrishte Vipaschitaha. Amuni, all these, Bhagavat, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rupe, in the forms, Maya, by me, Te, unto you, he, certainly. Anuvarnite, described respectively. Ube, both. Api, also. Na, never. Grihananti, accepts. Maya, external. Srishte, being so manifested. Vipachita, the learned one who knows. Translation. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know Him well. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in 2 different ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in His Vishwarupa, or all-pervading universal form. On the other, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these 2 conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle, but both of them are rejected by the learned pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. This is very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which records Arjuna's experience of the Vishwarupa of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Adruštapurvam rujitosmi drishtva bhaina cha pravyatitam mano me tadiva me darshaya deva rupam Prasiddha Devesha Jagannivasam. Bhagavad Gita 11.45. Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord Vishwarupa. But when he did see it, his curiosities were satisfied. But he was not happy to see such a form of the Lord because of his attachment as a pure devotee. He was afraid to see the gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayana or Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. Undoubtedly, the Lord has the supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious forms, but the pure devotees of the Lord are interested in his forms as eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as Tripad Vibhuti or Kingdom of God. The Lord in the Tripad Vibhuti abode exhibits himself in two forms, either with four hands or with two hands. The Vishwarupa exhibited in the material manifestation has unlimited hands and unlimited dimensions, with everything unlimited. The pure devotees of the Lord worship him in his Vaikuntha forms as Narayana or Krishna. Sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms of the Lord are in the material world also by his grace as Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, Sri Narasimha Deva, etc. And thus the pure devotees also worship them. Usually the features shown in the material world have no existence in the Vaikuntha planets, and thus they are not accepted by the pure devotees. What the pure devotees worship from the very beginning are eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. The non devotee impersonalists imagine the material forms of the Lord and ultimately they merge in the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord. Whereas the pure devotees of the Lord are worshippers of the Lord both in the beginning and also in the perfect stage of salvation. Abhi, get the Guru Puja stand, please. I did. Eternally. No, you didn't. The worship of the pure devotees never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after his attainment of salvation, when he emerges in the impersonal form of the Lord known as Brahmajyoti. Therefore, the pure devotee of the Lord are described here as Vipaschita, or the learned who are in the knowledge of the Lord perfectly. Today we read up to Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 35. We'll continue reading tomorrow. Gandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. We'll continue to Guru Puja.
Sure, I can sing. I go 1 hour and 15 minutes now. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Banamui Savardana Mate Jahara Prasade Bhai He Baba Tori Ajay Krishna Prapti ho jaha hoite Guru Guru Moka Padma Bhagya Chetete Koriya Kya Arena Kori Ho Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Aisha Chakshudam Nila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se Nirvigyan de Prakashita Prema Bhakti Daha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jade Prema Vedega Jara Charita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Jinara Bandhu Lokinath Lokera Jivana Lokera Jivana Prabhu koro doya deha more pada jaya. Ebe guys ko sukri bhuvana. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jai Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesya Sunyavadi Pashatadishatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhar Shiva Sarit Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. My only wish, my curses is pure by the